putting yourself in this sugar baby persona. Like, what does the future of a sugar baby Russian supermodel look like chasing after a rich husband?
Well, I could answer this in character, or I can give you a real life example because my character is based off of a real life person who was my roommate.
Yeah.
Let's get real. That's what I wanted to know. Like, where did this come from? Like, how did this start?
So basically, my roommate was from Russia, and she had moved to Ukraine, Kiev, and she, on a website, whatsyourprice.com, found this guy who took her to Miami and was like, okay, so I'm going to give you $50 for this date, but I'm going to give you a date, and then afterwards, I give you $50. It's literally, the website is, what's your price? Like, what is your price for a dinner date? So she went on this website, and it was like a $50 date, but they went out to dinner. He took her eventually to like Walmart, bought her hair tools, shampoo, conditioner, cosmetics, clothes.
Walmart. So homie balled out, huh?
That's just expensive. You get some hair products? It adds up.
Honestly, it was a pretty interesting move on his part because we later found out that he was a billionaire.
Yeah.
So
straight up. He was
smart.
a billionaire.
He said, let me get you
how
resources.
How old was he and how old was she?
So she was 30, and I would say that he was in his late 60s.
And you were how old? Being exposed to all
I was 18 years old.
So how did you have a 30-year-old roommate at 18, by the way?
It was kind of just like imposed on me. So I was dating this guy who was really sketchy. He was a Russian guy. I assumed that he was mafia because I just didn't know anything. And then one day just, it kind of like disappeared, but we're not going to really talk about that.
Let's just skip over that.
Skip over that part, just for my personal well-being. But he told me that he had a friend that was coming into town, and she is in an interesting relationship, and that she couldn't actually, it's either she stays with a friend that's going to pose as a family member, or she has to go stay with this guy that she's not fully comfortable staying with, because all of her bank accounts and stuff were tied to this man. So if she were to check into a hotel, he would know exactly which hotel she's checking into, because she didn't have any of her own personal financial freedom, except for the Platinum Amex that had her name on it, but that was linked to him. So I posed as a friend of a friend, which was technically true, that opened up my home. So I was like basically like sharing a bed with this absolute stranger, but I'm just honestly like, I would consider myself a very nice person because I was just like, didn't even know this chick. I was just like, okay, so she's going to pay rent? And like, no, but you know what? She's going to buy you a lot of shit. And I was like, fuck it. I'm broke. Let's do it.
Yeah.
So she wasn't paying rent, but she had a Platinum Amex card.
And she
would just ball out whatever she wanted.
Exactly. So she would like get me
transactional relationship. Even in your situation.
She didn't even speak a lick of English either. So we would just translate, in my tiny shitty apartment through Google Translate, and I would just be like, so what do you do for a living? And then it was always very obscure, but eventually we found out.
What would she say?
So she would tell me that she is a model.
They all are, by the way.
They all are.
They're all models.
I mean, they're gorgeous.
Okay.
I'll for sure give her that. She's a beautiful woman. That she was a model, and she had a very rich boyfriend, but they have a very complicated relationship, and he wants to move very quickly, and she wants to slow it down, and that's kind of as far as it went, because I noticed that she maybe wasn't as comfortable talking about it, and I was like, honestly, like, is this really going to change my life? No. You're good. But then I started to notice, I obviously was 18, and I was dating like this very interesting Russian character that was, I would say, emotionally abusive, because I was at the time a very malleable person. Like I was very easy to bend to your will, because as a woman, I thought that my role was to do anything that I could to please a man, but at the expense of myself, I would do it at the expense of myself, of my own like emotional integrity. So I remember her just starting to give me advice, and it was very much like, he has money. Like she'd be like, he has money. And I was like, yeah, I can see that by the cars that he picks me up in. So why is it that you pay for shit for him, huh? Like, why is it that, he likes to ask you to pay for stuff because you're not going to say no? And I was like,
you were paying for the rich Russian boyfriend?
Like sometimes he would like, sometimes we would go to dinners, and I think he was just testing me. We would go to dinners, and it would be like, his idea would be like $450 per person. And I was broke, and there would be times where he'd be like, you pay for it, and he was a scary dude, so I'd be like, okay, fine. Didn't really have much of a backbone or a spine. So she started giving me like this ridiculous advice on how to talk to men and how to carry myself. But
what was the advice that she would give you?
The advice would be like, you're a woman, you're a prize, never pay for anything. If a guy wants to chase you, let him chase you until the ends of the earth. Don't show any interest, don't whatever, which some of it could hold value. Like, you do have to play the game, but at the end of the day, like, when you're in a like relationship, I think it should be, you know, I don't need to play
once you're in a relationship, the game time is over, right?
Exactly. It's more like, okay, now how do we grow from here? Like, now we're a unit, now we're a partnership. How do we expand from this point instead of constantly playing this game?
And what was the age difference in you and the boyfriend?
It was 10 years. So I was 18 and he was 28 at the time.
You said he was a scary guy.
I mean, yeah, he was just like, I just had a cold look. Like, you looked at him and you saw Siberia. Like, there was just something in that guy's eyes.
What were you more attracted to him? Were you intimidated by him?
Yeah.
Did you respect him?
What
like,
made
how
you
does
stay
a
in
beautiful
that?
18-year-old girl end up in this relationship? And on top of that, you're paying for shit somehow.
Yeah.
So he pursued me very intensely in the beginning. He like sent me messages on, so I didn't even have a social media following at the time, but he would send me messages constantly, like, he wants to take me out to dinner, he wants to do this. And I remember I had just moved to Brickell, and I used to live with my parents, and I had gotten a job for a real estate developer who actually ended up sexually harassing me for the whole year that I was working for him. So I emotionally was in a very vulnerable position, because obviously, like, my boss, like the man that I respect and I work for, is making me feel terrible every single time I walk into the office. Like, he would just comment on my looks, or he would make me bend down and pick stuff up, and I could see that he was trying to look up my skirt, or he was making comments about like my chest size and stuff like that, when all I was trying to do was just focus on like the task at hand. And additionally, I was lonely. So I graduated high school early. I graduated at 16 years old, and by then I was already a junior in college. So it was difficult to make college friends because I was a minor and no one wanted to get in trouble by having a beer with me. And also, it was just like I had just moved to this big city where there's young lawyers, like there's doctors, there's finance bros, there's people doing a lot of things, and I don't really know where I stand. So I was looking for almost a man to guide me, or like be like my anchor, because I felt like I was just going in places that I really shouldn't have. And he presented as a really strong masculine figure that you can even liken to Andrew Tate in the way that he would speak and carry himself. And I was attracted to that as someone who at the time was more emotionally weak and didn't really know where I stood with myself. So, you know, it was just like the nice dinners and picking me up from work in a new car, or like a G-Wagon or something that I really hadn't I didn't have much experience with at the time. He would give me money for things in the beginning. I would pay for things, but he off the bat started paying my rent. So he financially dominated me really early on. So I almost felt like I owed him because he was paying my rent, and he knew I didn't make that much money, and I was trying to find a new job because I was getting sexually harassed. So he knew I was in a very vulnerable position. He was also married. I found out later, but it wasn't like a real one. It was like one of those Miami ones that it's like, come on, I just want to be an American citizen. So
I don't know anything about that, by the way. I don't know.
Just like
wink, government. I definitely married that girl from.
I was a kid, so yeah. I was a kid, and I made mistakes that kids tend to make, especially when you're looking for love in the wrong places. But I think I've grown from that, and I'm glad that I was thrown into such a turmoil, very turbulent relationship, because I was able to see one extreme and know then kind of like be able to like sniff out red flags. And it's led me to have great relationships from that point forward.
So if you like that clip, click right here to watch another, or if you want to watch the entire Soscast, click right here.